Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, and I'm an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book, Outdoor Minimalist, Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. The Outdoor Minimalist podcast has the goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of their process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. Hunting and fishing are seemingly popular outdoor activities, but how easy are they to learn when you didn't grow up doing them? In episode 92 of the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, we are re-entering the arena of hunting and fishing. While I work indirectly in this space, these specific outdoor activities are ones that I have had very minimal experience with, but want to bring more voices from hunters and anglers onto the show, especially those helping underrepresented groups thrive in a world designed for sportsmen. Uncharted Outdoorswomen and their female guides are passionate about creating space for women in the outdoors. Erin Crider founded the company in Colorado and has expanded to Wyoming, Montana, and Oregon. The Uncharted Team creates opportunities for women and other unlikelies to learn outdoor skills like hunting, fishing, and other survival skills. All classes, camps, and retreats are taught and guided by women. Thank you for joining me on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, Erin. I am excited to sit down with such an accomplished outdoorswoman and to just hear some of your insights about an industry that I inadvertently work in, but I actually don't really know that much about. So to start, I'd love it if you could just tell me a little bit about how you first got into outdoor recreation and how it fits into your life now.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I've been listening to all of your podcasts. Big fan on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. Super excited to be here. So how I got started in hunting and fishing was actually I got started fishing really early in life. My grandma, who took care of me pretty much at the beginning, was taking me bass fishing and crappie fishing. She loved catfish and she harvested a lot of the catfish too, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So she kind of taught me how to fish and got me into the outdoors. And every summer I would go out to her place and pretty much roam the acreage.
That's awesome. It reminds me a lot of my grandparents and living with them as a kid. But so how did that kind of carry on into your adult life? Did you just continue to enjoy those spaces and just pursue outdoor recreation in the realm of hunting and fishing, or have you kind of gotten into any other sports as well?
Sure. So I've always loved fishing at all of our family reunions. You can definitely find me near the water. There's just something that made you feel good seeing the water. And now I believe that there is a bunch of research out there saying that you should be seeing a lot of water. It just helps with your mental health and your anxiety. When my husband and I moved to Colorado about a decade ago, I saw somebody fly fishing. Didn't know what it was. I just saw, some fly line being thrown around in the air, and I was like, "Well, that looks cool. You must be fishing. So what is that?" Because I'm from Missouri. We don't really. I mean, there is definitely fly fishing in Missouri. I have done it myself, but it's not. It's like a conventional spin rod's the way to go. And I started looking into fly fishing around Colorado, and it was kind of the way to fish in Colorado because things are very shallow, and fly fishing is popular because it's just a different way to connect, and it's a more eco-friendly way to connect with the outdoors compared to throwing plastic lures and stuff like that, going to buy bait in a styrofoam container. It's just a more eco-friendly way to just go out and enjoy the Rocky Mountains and the glacial trout streams and everything that the West has to offer.
Yeah, whenever I think of fly fishing, I always think of kind of the West, like the Western streams and that picturesque view of the mountains in the background. And it seems from everyone that I've talked to about fly fishing, it seems like a very involved activity, like really mentally stimulating and kind of involves your body a little bit more than maybe other types of fishing. So it sounds really fun. I've never tried it, but it sounds really fun.
I
Um,
guarantee you'd find it fun. It is awesome.
So With that background, is that kind of what inspired you to start the Uncharted Outdoorswomen, or how and why did that become a part of your life?
So I started Uncharted Outdoorswomen as well as a small business, not a nonprofit. I believe it is the first all woman owned, all woman guided outfitter for hunting and fishing and hiking in multiple states that exist in North America. So that's kind of crazy. And I quit my career pre-COVID. I'm a recovering financial advisor, is what I what I tell people. Um, but I really experienced firsthand that there wasn't a safe space for me to learn how to fly fish without being made fun of, to be real honest. So I'd go to the fly shops and they'd be like, "What do you mean you feel uncomfortable? It's just us." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is weird. It's 30 of you, and I'm gonna try and ask a question that I'm gonna be judged on because I don't know anything about fly fishing. I really want to learn." So I learned firsthand that there wasn't a class for people to take to learn how to fly fish if you weren't a dude. And I didn't want to be part of that culture because there's a very pretentious culture in fly fishing, and I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. And so I worked on the board of different nonprofits, educating women in the outdoors for water conservation and protecting endangered fish. And when I quit my job, I was like, there's a serious need for this, and it's COVID. Everybody's going outside. I was like, I bet I could just teach classes. So I started Uncharted by wanting to teach fly fishing classes and take women duck hunting because there's not a gentleman duck hunter at the time that would take women duck hunting. They all told me no, and they were happy to take my husband. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take girls duck hunting too. So I got my outfitter's license, which everybody told me I would never get. It took all of 24 hours. And then I got permits to take people fly fishing. And the reason that it is now at almost 30 employees and in 4 different states is my good friend on Ty. We've been fishing together a couple years. The fly shop in her community wouldn't hire her because she spoke broken English. So she calls me up and she's like, "I've been volunteering at this fly shop with their fly tying nights for over a year and they won't hire me." And I knew why they wouldn't hire her, right? Then she told me, and I was like, "Well, but they can't tell you that." So it's all her fault. I remind her of that often, that now that Uncharted is almost at 30 employees. But I figured out how much it would cost to hire an employee, and it really just only made sense to hire more than one financially. So we hire women that are very confident in their skill and in their craft. They want a passion, or they have a passion for the outdoors. They want a career in the outdoors, and we are actively closing the wage gap in the outdoor industry. I've always lived on commission. That's the way I like to do it because I like to work when I work, and I like to be paid for what I believe I'm deserved. So that's how we set up Uncharted. Was everything is on commission. If you work, great. If you don't worry about it. But the girls get to set their own prices, and they get a significantly higher chunk of that money than they do working at the fly shops because I don't own a fly shop. I just have a very lovely website that my husband has built me. So costs are low, so I could pay the girls more, which makes them feel super empowered and makes the fly shops have to pay their female employees a little bit more in order to keep them, or I will hire them. So it's been kind of a movement, an unexpected movement to create this space for women and other unlikelies in the outdoors.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's crazy that it doesn't feel like it has been around that long, but it has grown so fast. So I do want to talk a little bit for listeners that haven't heard of Uncharted Outdoors Women before, kind of where you guys are located, how far your range is, and the types of offerings that you guys have.
Sure. So we teach a lot of classes more than we do traditional guiding. Um, we're pretty significant in the Denver area. We're also in northern Colorado and then Gunnison, Colorado, which is a small little cowboy town, but it's gorgeous, full of animals, full of wildlife, full of amazing wild views. Love it. Then we're also in Wyoming. mainly Thermopolis, Wyoming, which is just north of Casper. It's one of my favorite places. It's like Disneyland for me. I've been going there for years. My good friend Amanda runs Wyoming and Montana, and we're mainly in Missoula, in Montana. And then a gal named Alex who saw what I was doing and kept connecting with me on social media saying, "Hey, I really want to do this, what you're doing. I want to do it in Oregon. I've got the girls, I've got the team. Like, let's do this." And after a year of talking and getting Colorado up and rolling, we expanded into Oregon. And they are mainly in Portland, and we're expanding into Bend next in Oregon.
Wow, that's so many places. I feel like you can just continue to expand too as more people kind of learn about it. And there's women all over the country that are experts in these arenas. So hopefully it just continues to grow. And
That's the plan.
yes. So you already kind of mentioned what kind of drew you to start it as a business, but I also want to talk about hunting and fishing in general and some of the barriers to entry that exist for women, but also for people in general, like especially people that didn't grow up exposed to those types of activities.
Sure. So I was one of them. I'm an adult onset hunter, and I don't want to offend anybody when I say hunter because growing up, I also thought hunting was like I just had a negative feeling to it because you're killing animals, right? But then when I started really looking into it, looking into all the research and how significant it is and how important it is to conservation, then it started clicking and making sense to me since my degree is in animal science, even though I was in finance. So I don't want to offend anybody, but the barriers to entry into fly fishing and any type of hunting can be very expensive. So we teach a very approachable way where you don't need to go out and buy all of the things that all of these companies sell because they now that they have found that women are the fastest growing demographic in the outdoors, and they're just shoving hunting stuff down our throats, and we don't need that. And we definitely don't need it for fishing either. Fishing is fishing. You don't have to have waders and the fancy pack and $1,000 fly rod to go fishing. Some of the biggest fish I've ever caught are on a $100 Cabela's rod and reel and line. And I'm about to switch to just like a backpack, like a back to school backpack. It just needs to carry my lunch, my jacket, an extra pair of socks because like I like clean socks. I'm weird like that. My first aid kit, my flies. That's all it really needs. I don't, and like chest packs are kind of weird on women, right? Like they don't really fit right. And hip packs, I'm like all of 5'1", 5'2" on a good day. And the hip packs, like they get wet when because I'm so short getting in the water. And you really don't need to get in the water. Usually the fish are like right there at the bank. So the barrier to entry can be high, but if you have somebody else that looks like you saying, you know what, you don't need to buy all of that stuff that's on all these social media ads that all these ambassadors are pushing you to buy. You really don't need to buy any of that. And we're not sponsored by anybody. And I'm keeping it that way for this exact reason, because we can speak openly about it. I don't have to say, well, this company is great. Now, there are companies that are great, but you don't have to go and buy all of their stuff. I will throw in there that if you're looking to get into fly fishing, Orvis does have a really affordable rod that comes with it's like the whole kit. So when I started, I just bought a kit and I still have that kit and it works perfectly fine. The barrier to entry on hunting, I feel, is actually cheaper than fly fishing. So I'm an avid waterfowl hunter. I just absolutely love ducks and really despise geese. So, um, and you have to have a whole lot of gear to go duck hunting. That is really expensive. And one of the reasons why I wanted to host women and take women duck hunting was because of that barrier to entry, um, and that no one else would take them and show them what the experience was like. And ducks need our conservation efforts, like they really need them, especially certain kinds. The geese don't, they don't, they just need golf courses. So, um, but with hunting in like the backcountry of the West, I was not familiar with when I grew up in Missouri. I thought hunting was shooting stuff from a truck because that's what I had seen. And that is not hunting, not at all. Um, Most hunters see harvesting an animal as a very spiritual experience. No one likes pulling that trigger. Nobody likes that. We like seeing the animals. We like seeing them thrive. That's why sometimes we got to take some deer down and put them in our freezer to feed our families, because it's very normal to want organic meat to feed your family. And if you don't have to go to the grocery store where it's all wrapped in plastic, when you can bring home an animal that you've harvested and use eco-friendly, sustainable, compostable plastics to vacuum seal that animal and put it in your freezer so that it feeds you all year for $40 is how much a deer tag is, instead of hitting them on the road and leaving them for what? That's a very eco-friendly way to go about hunting. But hunting in the backcountry is extremely hard. It is not easy. The success rate is very low. Um, and I think that's what's kind of daunting to women, is going out there in the dark, which, yeah, that's, of course it is. There are lions out there. There are not tigers, but there's moose. There are bears out there, and you don't want to come into contact with them unless, they need to be taken out of the population, and you have a proper tag to do that. And you're going to put them in your freezer because you have to do that. If you're going to harvest the animal, you have to keep most parts of it and consume it. So I didn't know that that was hunting. So it's like just that barrier right there of like the whole thought process was big for me. And then there's not a lot of gear made for women out there. So we do want to feel and look good, even though we're wearing camouflage. We do want to feel and look good out there, but you really don't need camo to hunt any type of big game animal. They can't see that. You want to be covered, like you want to be disguised, but they can't see color. So that's why we're wearing bright orange. You don't have to have like all this expensive all these hunting pants and stuff like that. A good pair of shoes is key, just like hiking. Maybe a heated vest if you're out here in Colorado at Thanksgiving is helpful. But yeah, you don't have to buy a whole lot of stuff for hunting. The rifles are scary. They were definitely something new. I'm a shotgun girl. I didn't pull the trigger on a shotgun until I was 30. So now I'm 36 and I love them. There's a piece of every tax dollar that when you buy ammunition goes back to conservation as well. So all those fishing and hunting licenses, like all those dollars go back into our public lands. So I feel like that's super important to know as well. Um, when I was coming into it, I didn't realize that. I thought, I'm paying Colorado taxes. I'm sure that that's going to our national forest. No, not at all. Not at all. So our public lands really need us as well.
Yeah, do you feel like it's mostly kind of like a knowledge base? And you were saying earlier about how a lot of the men wouldn't take women out, which seems really strange to me. Like, wouldn't they want to introduce more new people to this arena and this sport that they love so much? So yeah, let's just talk about, I guess, the gender biases, maybe,
Oh yeah,
or gender differences within this sector of the outdoor industry, because I think it exists everywhere in the outdoor industry, but I think with certain activities, it is more prevalent because of the way our society like portrays it, especially in media. And so now I am on a tangent. So
yeah, I'm
I'm
right
gonna
there with you.
I'm gonna reel myself in here. So why do you think hunting and fishing specifically continue to be, I guess, male dominated? And has it been changing, slash, do you think it will start to tip the scales as we progress?
Sure. So I definitely think it has been changing. Um, yeah, if you don't know, women are the fastest growing demographic in the outdoors. However, there still are, and there always will be lots of women like me that taught, for example, fly fishing classes for free. And those classes fill. They're great. They are a great start, but they're a step to making you be successful on the river, but we really need that second step, because a free class for an hour is great, but you really need someone that has a lot of experience, fish a lot of different kinds of water, to show you the very basics of what you absolutely need to know, and then to show you get you out there and actually take you fishing to show you how to catch fish. And in the West, we have trout. we don't really have a whole lot of bass. So I do miss my bass. But we have a ton of trout out here, and they are really picky and finicky. They're way smarter than bass. And that opportunity didn't really exist when I was starting. I just had to find somebody that was better than me to take me fishing and then like beg them, right? And I couldn't just like sign up for a class and show up. Now you can sign up for a class and show up. But as fast as women were getting into hunting and fishing, they were leaving just as quickly because that second step, that 201 class, for example, it didn't exist. And now women are staying more engaged, more focused. We have a ton of amazing repeat clientele that come back and take another class. Okay, they took fly fishing, they took hunting, they want to go camping now. Now they've got new friends. Now they go to a brewery and go tie flies together to go fly fishing. Like it's just been this really cool, awesome it's sorry, this is an empowering moment for me. It's been a really cool, it's a movement is really what it is. And women will stick when they have the access to the classes, not the free, drawing that you get that Colorado Parks and Wildlife gives out. You have to be drawn for that. People always talk about it. I put in for that for years. I was never drawn, and there's not a lot of people that put in for it. And that some, I've actually heard from the game wardens, half the people that do get drawn don't even show up. I'm like, why didn't you call me? Anyways, don't get me going on that. But now there's like an actual event that you can show up to, meet other people that look like you or are welcoming of you. And we have a ton of gentlemen as well. And you can take that second class to be more successful on the water. And like there's tons of free classes for youth, for example. And but it's normally up to mom and dad to carve out the time and find the budget to go buy all of the gear. And when they can't just like go every weekend, at least they can meet other parents similar to themselves at our classes to go together, take what we taught them and go on an adventure together and carve out time that way.
Yeah, do you think that that accessibility piece is kind of the biggest player when it comes to diversifying outdoor spaces?
It is absolutely key to have, like, for example, a 201 class or that second step to keep people engaged in the outdoors. Otherwise, they're just out there failing. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to stick with things if you're repeatedly failing and you're not sure why. And I think in a lot of respects, other fields, I don't know how to phrase this, but other sectors of the outdoor industry perhaps have had like a better light in popular media. Um, so it is a little bit like more approachable. And like you were saying, there is sometimes a mental barrier to overcome when it comes to killing an animal or harvesting an animal.
Mhm.
So how do you kind of um, frame those types of conversations in your classes, I guess?
Yeah. So, for example, we teach a hunter's education class. We just had one. It's required by Colorado Parks and Wildlife. If you pull a tag, you have to take this class to talk to you about hunting ethics and conservation and things like that. But just the fact of, like, very basically here in Colorado, half of our state is public land, half of it. And it's being, when you hear this fact, it's being sold off to billionaires by our state and by the BLM and by the federal government, the National Forest. Is being sold to billionaires who put up gates, who put up no trespassing signs, who put up security. And we can't fish that anymore. We can't go hike there anymore. So this affects everybody. But the only people that are really paying for the safety of the public lands are anglers, because that's where their licenses go, and hunters and people that buy state park passes to go hiking. Without those three people, half of our state is not going to stay public lands, because that would mean no one is using it. And like I said, a lot of people in Denver, around Colorado, think that they are paying some kind of imaginary tax that is going to our public lands when they are not. But it's free for them to use in a lot of places. We're getting very populated out here. So there are some places where you have to pay to make a reservation, or you have to have a wildlife pass to recreate on some of the public land. but all of those dollars go back to habitat conservation. They go back to paying the game wardens who make sure that animals are harvested ethically and in their correct season. It helps, and those people need a raise, by the way. It is expensive to live here, and they are not getting paid enough, which is like one of my final bullet points on our permit application is like, if more of the people that I am streamlining into the outdoors buys a hunting and fishing license, you may get a raise. Because here we are, like we're here, we want to do it, and yeah, they definitely need to be paid more because I just can't imagine selling a piece of public land to a billionaire ethically.
No, I think that gives a lot of people an icky feeling. I mean, other than
Yeah,
the billionaire buying it, they probably are happy about it, but
yes. There are
um
very few of those billionaires. So
yeah, it's not necessarily for the greater good. Um, yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the permitting and kind of like how the licenses work and the taxing, because I think that, yeah, a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. And a lot of times people take the use of public land for granted when they're not necessarily contributing in any way other than using it for free, which is great. I love that we have such access to those things out west. So what things in the industry, and you can keep it kind of specific to outdoorsmen and women, um, what things can we be doing to make that space more inclusive and accessible to everyone?
sure. My number one thing is empower a woman. Guys keep saying, how do you do that? Like, how do you host women's classes? Like, we want to host women's classes. You have to hire a woman. And like, we need gentlemen to do this, but it's not usually the gentleman, it's how the woman perceives the male or person of color or anyone from the LGBTQ community. It's how we perceive them based off of our personal experiences. So this past winter, we did a lot of expos from Texas to Montana. And me and the girls traveled just talking to different people coming through the expos. And we're the only female outfitter there. So our booth was busy, 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 busy. And here we are. This is the craziest thing. At one of them, we were across from this African safari hunter. Like he had all of these dead things. I didn't even know what they were. Um, and they were like $14,000. You can't even bring the meat back. Things like that, I don't understand. But how we were talking to the women that were coming through, they're pushing strollers, um, they're with their partners, and when they would come and talk to us, the guys that own the booth on either side of us would say, wow, we really can't do what you're doing. Like we literally cannot have that conversation that you're having. Like she immediately trusts you versus me over here with my, I don't even know what those animals were because they don't live here naturally. So but yeah, you got to hire a woman to create more space for women. We also don't want to wear pink in the outdoors necessarily. And I think a lot of retailers don't understand that 1 in 4 women have been a victim of domestic violence. And at Uncharted, we put guns in the hands of those women for the first time since they've been pointed at them. So, but we don't want a bunch of people to know that we're female and we're out here alone. So, and we're wearing bright pink. That's not okay. We don't want that. So that's another way is just don't push pink on us. People say, oh, we want teal, whatever. Just don't push pink on us. Make things in not pink. Literally, if you made it in all the same color that the men's gear is, but fitted to a woman, which you should hire a woman to fit, like, to create clothing for women, by the way. And a lot of companies don't do that. They're like, oh yeah, well, all women look like this and a pole. And I'm like, nope, we are curvy. We got all the things. So that's another great way to create space is hire women and then pay them more. Pay them more than your top male guide. Because if they feel accepted, they're going to tell you how to make your business better. And I don't know about y'all, but my business is pretty cash flush because we got nothing but girl bosses over here. And whatever they say goes. Like I have 30 bosses. So things work out the way that they want to based on what they hear their community needs because they actually listen. They don't tell people anything.
Yeah, I think all of those things are applicable to a lot of different industries for sure. And I have been seeing a little bit more of a trend of some apparel companies being more inclusive in their apparel, and straying away from the more like traditional, but I'm not sure if that is true within the hunting and fishing arena. But I know in like the other like skiing and hiking and rock climbing and stuff, it is definitely becoming more inclusive as far as equipment and gear geared towards women. So that's positive.
Yep, definitely. Definitely.
Um, yeah, and another thing that it just kind of reminded me of another episode that I did. It was with this consulting agency, Respect Outside, and the woman that is a co-founder and CEO, she's been a lawyer for like sexual assault for decades, probably like 3 decades. And she was saying how businesses are more successful when they're more diversified. So it would
Mhm.
benefit the bottom line to be hiring more people of color and be hiring more women, because not only are you more welcoming to other people from the outside, but you're going to be making more money in the long run.
Absolutely. And I'm proof of that.
Yes.
Um, and we need everybody. Like I believe in climate crisis. I believe in climate change. I just simply look at the facts from thousands of different researchers. And we need everybody, especially the fastest growing demographic, to change what our world is about to hit. We need everybody to care about it. And we especially need the fastest growing demographic to care about it because they make a lot of decisions in the household, like where their food comes from. We vote. We haven't been voting for very long, but we vote on things. And that's really important to conservation, especially here in the West. We've put a lot of things on the ballot that major uh, major cities such as Denver have to vote on. And a lot of those women don't know anything about wolves, for example. So having just that extra touch of like one of the hunting guides saying that, it would be great to have these wolves if they were native, but they're from Mexico, for example. Um, just to ask more questions that a lot of people wouldn't think of. But it's going to take a lot of people to turn this world back the direction that it needs to be going. And I feel like it goes beyond recycling, not buying things, but also caring about the environment because you use it. When you're out there fishing, you see the wild mushrooms, you see the elk, you see the moose, you see the little bear cubs. Hopefully, you don't see a mountain lion. Um, we need everybody to care about those. And so it's our passion to get as many people that don't look like an old white guy out there and caring about all of those things.
Absolutely. I agree. And since over half of my listeners are women, and that's great. I love that there's so many women that listen to the podcast. Are there things and resources that you can recommend to listeners of any demographic, that are interested in learning more about hunting and fishing?
Sure. So the easiest way to learn more about hunting and fishing in your state is to go to your state wildlife agencies. They have programs. If you qualify for the programs, take advantage of them because they're usually pretty good. Um, I would tell you if there's a female hunting or fishing guide in your area, just go and pick her brain. They seem to be pretty rare. But we're in 4 states, so if you send us a message or an email on social media or Facebook, or actually all of the girls' emails are on our website as well, and their bios, which is like pretty. It's not a very widely accepted thing to do that, I guess, because turnover is so bad. But we empower women, so we want their bios to be out there, and so their email addresses are out there. Um, but YouTubing how to do like the very basics of what to pack is great. We do a lot of, my attorney hates it when I use this F word, but foraging. We do a lot of foraging. And there are a ton of books out there about medicinal mushrooms and medicinal and edible plants. There's lots of books on how to pack your pack for backpacking, how to camp more sustainably. Podcasts are great. This is one of my favorite podcasts. anything like that, but just ask questions, ask all kinds of people questions, and then come to our events.
Yeah, would you mind talking about where some of those events may be held and kind of just generally how listeners can learn more about Uncharted Outdoor Women?
Sure. So we do live near an international airport, and we try really hard to get carpools together for people that do come from out of town. So we are actually paying attention to that. Where every male guide I've ever booked is like, "Oh, I got your money. I'm good to go. See ya. Bye." We'll keep them, but I just need that extra level of attention. I want that, so that's what we give. Our other girls want that too, and a lot of them are moms. Like they take that into consideration too. Is this is your weekend? Your weekend away. Um, but some of the things that we have going on locally here in Colorado is it is fly fishing season. We are doing a ton of fly fishing camps, fly fishing retreats, learn how to fly fish, 101 courses, 201 courses, lots of fly fishing going on. In fall, we will be doing more of learn to hunt camps where our hunting guides are actually harvesting the animals, showing how they find those animals, how they harvest them, how to ethically harvest, what kind of habitat that they like to live in. Reading through the regulations is really important. It's a thick book of fine print. So the hunting guides go through all of that. And then I will be doing actual duck hunts and following the migration from Wyoming to Colorado. And then in late July and August is when the plant identification, that's the term my attorney gave me to use. We're doing a lot of mushroom identification and plant identification, late July and August and into September. And we're actively looking for someone that can do the same in Oregon, Montana, and Wyoming, because that's like a very easy, basic skill that we used to utilize many years ago, and now it's just been kind of forgotten. And I feel like it's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, I love that you extend into a lot of the other forms of food collection. I feel like that is often kind of forgotten. So it's like an all-encompassing kind of programming, and that's really amazing. And I'll be sure to include your website and social media and everything in the show notes. So if people want to look up if there are guides in their area, they can find it very easily there.
Cool.
But with that, I just have a lot of things to thank you for. First, thanks for listening to the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for all of the work that you're doing in the outdoor industry to make it more accessible and inclusive. And also, thanks for taking the time to sit down and share all of your experiences with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Meg.
Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book, on YouTube, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com. For even more updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.